Most of you guys know Steve, but I have known him for 3 years. I know that's not a long time, but I'm only 30, so that's like a tenth of my life. The best tenth of my life. Yes, no. But Steve is a great resource through Trawick Financial. If you have any high-end, I won't say low-end, but high-end life insurance questions, Steve and the Alliance Group are a resource that Trawick Financial uses to tackle some big cases. In fact, we have a case right now that we're working through. Lord willing, it lands, but it's his agent's first case, and the death benefit is starting at $1.5 billion. Billion with the B. Can I get a B? Yes. So, and Steve has.
It's not one life; it's many lives.
Yeah, it's many lives. But you know what? It's his first case, and so like you know.
What's the target?
He has, you don't want to even know. But you know what? Steve is here to help us when it comes to advanced life sales. He has the resources that Trawick, through our partnership, has. So if you guys are like, hey, Greg, I have a really big life question or case or design, I'm going to be honest with you. I'm going to work it, and then as soon as I hit my limit and my team hits a limit, we're going to call into Lee Trawick, and then if he's out golfing, then we're gonna bring Steve in. So
for 1.5 billion, he will come off.
Yeah, he will come off.
He'll take the call right there on the green.
Yeah,
I've already made 2 flights on that one.
Without any further ado, let's give a warm welcome.
Grateful to be here, Excel Empire. What an amazing group of folks. You know, I get the pleasure of working with different groups all over the country, and I can say what's happening here is very special. What's happening here is unique, not only from the Trawick side. Lee and I have known each other we were talking today, nearly 20 years we've worked together. So known Lee for a long time, and
that's a tenth of Lee's life.
A tenth of his life. When he told me about this new group and what was happening at Excel, how they were coming together, you know, to be honest, I was a little skeptical because I knew Lee and I knew what he did, but you know, these new guys that really weren't originally from the insurance side and they were taking over his agency. But what they've done is really put Greg in a wonderful position to learn, mentor with Lee. Lee is one of the most honest, hardworking, knows all kinds of stuff person in the world. So what they're doing at Excel, what we're doing at Excel is really quite incredible. I had the good fortune of going through the credentialing class, of course, with some of you guys in the room here. Got to know several of you there, and but I want to really press upon the fact that this is something unique and grab a hold of what you have here. So before we get started, so I kind of know where we are. How many folks here are currently life insurance licensed? Oh, good. I just want to hug you all day long when I just see your shirt right there. So we'll catch up later. I know, it's not wonderful. So with that, this is going to be, this presentation is an outline of stuff to talk about. So if you have questions throughout, if the questions are getting a little long, we'll have to push through it and we can get together afterwards. But if you have one through it, go ahead and ask. There's a couple things I want you to take from it. First off, we're gonna be talking about some vocabulary, not high-tech insurance financial words, but sales words from the standpoint of how do you position yourself with a client? How do you convey an emotion? How do you get through, you know, we're talking about very complex things a lot of times, and agents, advisors make cardinal sins in the words they use. The words are so important. So take note of some of the words we use. We're going to talk about some business planning, how insurance works as a great tool in business planning. You know, it does so many different things. We think of it as income protection for the family, first and foremost, that's what we do. But there are so many different applications that go beyond what a lot of you probably have ever thought about before. My background is, I've been in life brokerage. I was with a firm for about 15, 17 years. We started our own broker dealer. I spent the first 17 years of my career training securities guys how to sell insurance and insurance guys how to sell securities. So I worked kind of both sides of it. We worked a lot in the tax market. So I do recognize there's some very seasoned, I mean that's code for old, tax folks here in the room that know a lot more than I know on the tax side. But That's part of what you have to do. If you don't know something, you don't have to know everything. You just have to know who to call. And take advantage of the people in the room here. So the battery in my clicker, I got here and it's dead, so I'm gonna be my own clicker here, so bear with me as I have to click
Do you
through
want me
this.
to do it, Steve? Or just-
What's that?
Do you want me to come to click it for you?
You know,
You must lick it.
yeah. Yeah, could you sit there and then I'll just go like this with you.
Thanks.
Thank you, tap our shoulder. Thank you, thank you.
Thank you, Van
All right.
White.
You mind that? You want?
Oh, thank you.
Perfect.
I wonder you're still here.
So what do we do? And I want you to think about this from the context of what do you do in your normal life, business life? Are you a tax expert? Are you a financial advisor? Are you an insurance agent? Do you help people with their tax services? Like a lot of us are referring people to the ERTC. And are those kind of what we do? No, it shouldn't be. You shouldn't do any of that stuff. You are a problem solver.
Yeah.
There's some of the stuff we talked about earlier this morning, really, it comes down to helping people. People want to be helped. They want someone to have an advocate for them. They want somebody to help them through the things that maybe to us might seem simple, but they don't know. They're really good at doing what they do. They're really good at fixing transmissions or being the CEO of a company, but they might not know the tax side of what we do, the financial aspects, the charitable planning, all of that type of stuff. So we need to find out what it is they need. Find out what their problems are. Ask the questions. Listen for their pain. Offer solutions. Listen for their pain. When you ask those questions, ask questions that they'll tell you their pain. What keeps you up at night? What are the biggest problems facing you in your business right now? Ask those questions and they'll tell you what you need to help them. Never sell anything. We sell insurance, that's what we say, right? If you're doing your job right, you never have to sell anything. People hate salespeople. We hate to be salespeople. Most people that do sell insurance don't tell people they sell life insurance because they don't want people to think of them as a salesperson. But if you're doing your job right, you're not selling anything, you're solving problems. And if you come about it from that way, it's a completely different conversation. Solve problems first and foremost. So, life insurance is a great problem-solving tool, one of the best. Number one reason, beyond the obvious, we're going beyond protecting your family and income and that type of stuff. But one of the biggest reasons it's a great tool in the planning process is for taxes. I'll just go click 4 or 5 over here. Taxes for growth, tax-free income, living benefits. Greg told me that some of the folks here wanted to learn more about living benefits. How many of you are familiar with living benefits? Woo! Good. Woo! Living benefits came about 15 years ago or so, revolutionized life insurance. There's still some folks selling the old kind. If you're not familiar with the new kind of living benefits, call Greg, call Treywick. Incredible, you should be selling it. But really, you have access to the death benefit while you're still alive. From a business perspective, the company has access to the death benefit. So traditionally, if you needed cash, you could take money out of the policy, right? Well, now you can leverage the death benefit for critical, chronic, terminal illness, critical injury, all of those things while you're still alive. So it's changed the whole dynamic of the products we offer from that perspective. No additional cost, it's built-in free, term, IUL, whole life, fixed UL, everything has, all the products we offer have those on them. So pay attention to that because that's something that's completely different, but tax-free. You're accelerating the death benefit tax-free. Estate equalization, part of the tax planning process. There's all kinds of great things that life insurance can do from the tax perspective that oftentimes gets missed by the traditional financial advisor. Financial advisors are always looking for rates of return. They're always touting their rates of return, right? You should be more concerned about how can I access my money and how much do I have to spend. Now, having a good financial plan with assets, with having some volatility, having some money in the market is a good thing. But having some tax advantage parts of your portfolio that has protections that if anything happens to you along the way, fills up all your buckets, I would say might even be more important, right? So it's important to have that balance, but this is something that's often neglected. So as far as the words go, as the words and what words to use when you're talking to clients, one of the greatest aspects of life insurance, it's you're exchanging pennies for dollars. Even if you're doing a single pay MEC, Greg's working on a real big one right now, you put the money in, And yeah, you can't take it out tax-free when it's a Met, but you put in 100,000 and now you have $1 million. I mean, depending how old you might be more, might be less, but is that better? Yeah. How long does it take to turn that 100,000 into $1 million if you were to have it in the market? Quite a long time, right? The rule of 72, it's gonna be a high rate of return
Might
before
go
you.
down.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
That's where, it's like you read my mind. That, the opposite could happen, where you put in 100,000, you're never gonna get to $1 million. You can then have 100,000 less, 100,000 less, 200,000, you know, so it could go the other way pretty quickly.
I like the casino.
Right, just like the casino. So with that,
Speaking from.
with with regards to we all know clients, we all know family members that maybe have some money set aside for their heirs, and let's say they. I feel like I'm drunk up here. Which they have, you know, maybe grandma and grandpa, maybe mom or dad have 100,000 in the CD. And when you're talking about their assets, they say, you know, that's for the kids, that's for the grandkids, we don't want to touch it. That's great. Let me show you a different way, Grandma. If we were to take that $100,000 and move it over here, we might be able to buy 250,000, 300,000 death benefit. And if you design it right, in the second year, it might still have 100,000 in cash. Early cash value riders, using some blending, you might have $100,000. So money for the heirs, if they need emergency, need money, that 100,000 is still there. But if something happens, you have 250 of death benefit that's passing. The way grandma has that invested at her age, how long will it take to turn that 100,000 into 250 or 300,000?
The sun will go out. before-
Right, yeah, the lights will flicker, but if the light starts flickering and she needs it, she's now leveraging 250 for living benefits as opposed to that 100,000 that she has in her CD. So again, a better way to hold your money. So again, when you're talking to grandma, don't leave your kids money, spend your money. Maybe that 100,000, maybe she puts 25 into the life policy, buys 100,000, now takes that 75 and goes and visits the grandkids, takes them on a cruise, takes them and does stuff with it, live with that money. She spent her whole life earning it, enjoy it. So she can leave the same amount by taking a portion of it, buying life insurance, and spend the rest. So again, another tool for life insurance. Maximizing charitable gifts. How many people here have clients that put some money in the basket every Sunday? Yeah, so Mr. and Mrs. Client, you put $50 a week in the basket. Church needs that. What if you put 25 in, and the other 25 you saved, and you put $100 a month into a life policy and left them something meaningful? For a lot of small churches, 25,000 is a big gift. 50,000 is even a bigger one, probably about twice as much. So they start thinking about it. I never thought about that. I can leave a life insurance policy to a charity? Yeah. It's a great, there's some ways we have to set that up from a tax perspective on when you give it, how you get write-offs if you can or not. We won't go into that today, but an amazing thing to help. Think about the good you can do. Think about how people want to do good, and they think they're doing good by leaving whatever they have in this account for to the church or to the Humane Society, to the Boys and Girls Club, whatever their charitable cause, whatever they're championing in their own lives. So diversification of assets, this is a really big one, is you have your money in the market, in your 401k, in your IRA, your different real estate, different assets that you have. But people don't think about life insurance as an asset class, but it really is the foundation from everything else from which you build upon. Because it's the one that has a steady rate of return, it's the one that kicks in when you kick out, it's the one that has the living benefits, it does all these different things. Everything else goes on top of it. When you mix in the IUL component to it, it changes that even more so from the standpoint of now you can participate in the upside with the 0% floor, right? So with that, it is a tremendous asset class compared to everything else that they're doing. Part of their overall portfolio, that life insurance as an asset class is so important. I put Ibbotson on there because with regards to indexing, Roger Ibbotson wrote a white paper a few years ago talking about how indexed accounts, he was referring to annuities, but it's the same indexing strategy. Indexing accounts will outperform bond portfolios. Traditionally in your portfolio, the life insurance is considered the same allocation part as your bond portfolio. As you're more fixed, you're more steady, you're more secure. Robert Ibbotson, everyone know who Robert Ibbotson is? Roger Ibbotson? Roger. Is it Roger? Robert. Roger. He Ibbitson's one of the they do asset allocation, they do modeling for a lot of different mutual fund companies and some variable annuity companies, and they do risk tolerance and asset class, and very well thought of in the financial world. Roger came out with this white paper that said indexing strategies will outperform the bond market. So this isn't the insurance company saying this. This is somebody who works in that market. So again, if you have a client that has a portion of their assets divided into bonds, which as you get older, more people have, it's been kind of a difficult place to park your money up until just recently, but people have their money diversified there. Life insurance is, you're doing the same thing, but you have the self-completing component that you don't have on your bond portfolio. So it's a way to reallocate. So thinking about life insurance from the perspective of, it is an asset class. It's different than we're thinking about that income protection, like I said, mom and dad across the kitchen counter. It is an asset class that you have. Funding buy-sell agreements, we're gonna talk about that. Executive benefits, we're gonna talk about that. Qualified versus non-qualified, picking the who. What that means is, when you have a 401k, a SEP, a simple defined benefit plan, any of those, there's lots of rules. And the main rule that makes them very difficult for business owners is, if I do it for me, I have to do it for everybody. And I have to do it on percentage-wise same. Non-qualified plans, this is the one time it's okay to say this and do this, you can discriminate. I'm not saying everywhere else, but I'm saying right here in life insurance, and with non-qualified deferred comp plans, non-qualified plans, you can discriminate. I can say, I want to do it for Ed, I want to do it for you, but Michael, oh, man, he's replaceable.
Always getting the shit.
Yeah.
Good example.
So yeah, I mean, so I can pick who does it, who gets it. We're going to dive into what those look like, but that's a real important component of the overall asset allocation part of your retirement sources. One of the things I like to do when I go into a business owner is business owners get hit by all of these different professionals coming in saying, hey, I want to talk to you about your group benefits. And what does the business owner hear when you say that? How much is this going to cost me? Exactly. All prices are going up. I'm going to have to pay more. Even though we have another, like maybe we can save you a few dollars. It's still 15% more than it was last year. And that's what they're here. But when I come in and I say, Michael, today, Michael owns a sizable insurance practice with lots of employees. If I came in and said, Michael, I want to come in today and talk about your selfish benefits. What do you mean? I'm talking about benefits for you that you don't have to do for anybody else. Changes the mindset, right? I want to talk about your selfish benefits.
He looks down the hall and he closes the door.
Exactly. And golden handcuffs, we're going to talk about that a little bit. And then protecting profit centers. So I'll say it today wrong a couple times, but I try to train all financial advisors I work with. When you're talking about key people, try not to say key people, say, what are you doing to protect your profit centers? Because it changes the mindset of those people that work in your organization. If you say key people, you as an owner, you think of them a little bit as an expense. How much are you paying them? What are you giving them? What do you have to do? What's it going to cost me to have that person here? But if you change the mindset to, it's not what I have to do for them, it's what they're making me. Because those are really your profit centers. Those are the people making you money. They do what they do really well. And if they leave, what's that going to cost to replace? And that's what you need to get them thinking about. I think I've found where all the good employees are today. They're all on the ship. Holy smokes, the people on the ship, and I'd hire all of them. They're all incredible. So don't talk about life insurance. Talk about what it does. And you'll be much more successful because no one wants to buy life insurance, but they do like what it does. It's kind of, a lot of times, I'll go through a whole presentation talking about what it does. And at the very end, we'll bring out an application. They'll say, is this life insurance? They say, yeah, to get these benefits with the taxes, we have to do it on life insurance. So we gotta go through this little exam. Or maybe, depending on the death benefit, we don't have to go through an exam, but we have to ask these questions. And if we can get you qualified, you get all these other benefits. Okay, we'll do it. But if I would have started and went into that business owner's office and said, hey, you need $2 million of life insurance, it's gonna cost this amount. It's a different conversation, isn't it?
Nobody wants to buy life insurance, but what we talk about with tax planning, people will spend thousands of dollars a year to implement a tax plan.
Yep. And that's really what life insurance is, properly structured. It is a tax plan, and it's like one of the best tax plans. So life insurance with living benefits is The only financial vehicle that is self-completing in the event that you become critically, chronically, terminally ill, or pass away before you retire. Let that sink in a little bit. It's the only financial vehicle that is self-completing. If you get sick with your 401k when you're 45, what do? Well, you have to, if you work somewhere where you can borrow it out, you can borrow it out of your 401k, but you have to pay yourself interest for that, and you have to pay it back with after-tax dollars, right? If you don't have the loan provision on it, you can pull the money out, but if you're 45 in my example, tax people in the room all know how much that is. It's the income tax, state income tax, and 10% penalty. So if you need $50,000 for that surgery, you might have to pull out $80,000 to get it. Are you ever gonna be able to save your way back? No. If you needed that money and you didn't have it anywhere else, before you retire, you're not gonna get back to where you would have been retired. So adding this, like I said, as part of your overall asset allocation, it's a tremendous way to ensure what else you're doing on the retirement side. So it's a different way of thinking about it from that perspective too, is that you're insuring your retirement plan, you're insuring your 401k or your other assets or your real estate, whatever else you're doing your money in. It's, go back one. I told, when I first did this slide many years ago, I told the guy in my office, I said, could you put a slide up with a retirement vehicle? This is the slide you put up. And I've left it there every time because it makes me
It's
fun.
relative.
Yeah, exactly.
It's low budget, but it's right.
Yeah. So why non-qualified plans may be attractive option? Well, let's first talk about for the owner. For the owner, it can be attractive because you can focus on protection, living benefits, retirement income, and estate planning for the owner. For the key employees, you can focus on cash value for the employees, their retirement, their living benefits, like something happens to them, what does that mean to their family, what does it mean to you as the business owner? Stability for the individual regarding potential individual life events. So stability, having this coverage on your employees or giving them the opportunity to partake in that purchase of it, whether you're paying for it or sharing in the cost, it's good for everybody from the standpoint of keeping the business going, keeping those profit centers geared up and ready to keep going.
Steve?
Yes.
Last slide, CB,
Cash value,
LBR.
living benefit rider.
Okay, sorry.
We're acronym heavy in this business. So, with regards to, if anybody have in their own business or their clients that right now are having, their businesses having a hard time finding good employees, keeping good employees, like even finding anyone that speaks English. I don't mean like foreign language, I mean Americans that have been here their whole lives, they can't talk to someone on the phone. It's pretty disheartening. It's just terrible right now. It's very difficult. And a lot of business owners, they're experiencing high turnover trying to find the right person. And when they do find somebody that's good, what do? They go somewhere else for $1 more an hour or $1,000 more a month or $5,000 more, whatever that number is. You train them, you get them up to speed, you spend all the money training them and retooling everything you do for that profit center in your company, and they leave. Big problem right now. One of the biggest areas where you can bring something of value back to your business owner is to talk to them about how do you attract, retain, and reward your profit center key employees. What do you mean by that? Well, creating carrots, handcuffs, and parachutes. That's really what you're doing. Something to get them to come to you, something to incentivize them to stay, and then after they've done a great job, providing them something special on the back. And again, that key person profit center, it's really important to get that business owner thinking about it that way. And ask the questions, what would happen if? What would happen if they left? What would happen if they went to the competition? What would happen if they got sick? What would happen, let's say I'm the business owner, what would happen if one of those things happened to me if I got sick? I couldn't come into work. Is there somebody that could replace me in the business? A lot of smaller businesses, no. Michael's irreplaceable. They couldn't find another Michael in his office. Well, but I mean that he knows all his clients. He knows them really well. They go to his firm because they know he's going to take care of them. And if he gets sick and can't come in, they might start looking around. So again, what do you have in place? Executive bonuses are great. We're going to dive into what those might look like. Split dollar plans, economic benefit loan regime. There's two kinds. We're going to dive into those a little bit more. Non-qualified deferred comp, we're gonna dive into that a little bit more. Flex plan, we're gonna learn all about tomorrow, or Kaizen, 2 different ways of even taking that bonus, that gift, and supercharging it. Pennies for dollars, taking a little bit of money and giving something incredibly much more powerful and meaningful through leveraging. Alicia's gonna talk about that tomorrow with the flex plan. Your team at Trawick, they know about the Kaizen plan as well. So 2 great ways. We're not going to dive into those too much today because she's going to talk about it tomorrow. 2 great ways of taking some of the company's money and creating benefit for employees. I'm in the traditional premium financing. So with that, common types of executive bonus plans. So the most basic type. Now, how many folks work with executive bonus plans and know this stuff? Great. Well, Ed. So, executive bonus. This is the most common, the simplest, the easiest one. So what is your first name?
Lauren.
Lauren. I'm sorry, Lauren. I actually did it, but
You're
so Lauren, you working for the company.
Mm-hmm.
We like what you're doing. We love that you're learning. We love that you're doing a great job. So we're going to do something special for you. We're going to give you the money to buy a life insurance policy to take care of you and your family and for you to save money. Now that can be done a lot of different ways. It can be where let's just assume that the premium we're going to put in $5,000 a year into a policy for her to save for retirement. If I give her $5,000, I get to write it off. She gets to elect her, she owns it, she elects her beneficiary, she does what she wants to with the cash inside of it. Now, one of the questions everybody always says is, what if Lauren says she doesn't want it? It's okay, then it's all right. Well, I want the $5,000. No, this is the plan, this is the benefit, this is what I'm doing for you. It's easy to shut that down. You get this or you don't get anything. So, you have to turn it around. You have to educate that employee on how good of a benefit this really is. Not only is her family protected, not only is she building up cash on a tax-favored basis and then future tax-free income, but she has that peace of mind knowing that she's protected where she might not have that insurance otherwise. But when I write it off, pay the premium to Lauren, what happens with that $5,000 when she gets it? Taxable income to her, right? So if I just do, that's called a single bonus, executive bonus. If I do that, that's great, I get the write-off, she gets this, but she has to pay tax on that $5,000. Now, if I'm an employee, and there's 2 ways of looking at it, depends on how old the employee is. If they're a little bit older, they get it. If they're a little bit younger, they're going, well, this is great, I just got a $5,000 bonus that I don't get to use and don't get to hold or keep or spend, and I gotta pay tax on it. This is freaking great. So what a lot of companies will do is they'll do what they call a double bonus, is we'll have $5,000 going to the policy, but I'll actually bonus her $7,000 or $7,200 or whatever that works out to be. So I bonus her, it all happens, usually the bookkeeper does it, and they'll send a check to the insurance company for $5,000 to her policy, and then the taxable amount will be withheld out of there. So it's net 0 change in her paycheck, because I double bonus the tax. Okay, does that make sense? So from a business perspective, from an owner's perspective, it's a write-off, right? So it's good, we like write-offs. It's gonna make her happy, she gets to take care of her family. It's good, and it's an immediate benefit. She has that money they're growing for her. She can change the beneficiary. If she leaves, it's her, she takes it with her. Now, if she leaves, I'm not gonna pay the premium anymore. So for me as a business owner, write off now, but there's no handcuffs. There's nothing really keeping her there other than my commitment to continue to pay that premium, okay? So it's a good short-term tax write-off. Benefit for the employee. It's the best thing for the employee, the double bonus, because it's her, she can still leave and there's no recourse for me. I can put what they call on it a collateral assignment. Not a collateral assignment, there's a word I'm forgetting right now. There is a form you can fill out that says, hey, you can't touch this. Even though it's yours, for this many years you can't touch it. If you go to touch it, then the insurance company calls me first, and I say, no, she can't touch it yet. But we sign that ahead of time together. But there's restrictive endorsement, that's the word we're looking for. There's a restrictive endorsement form. It's still hers, she owns it. If she leaves, she owns it, but she can't touch it for so many years. You can't make it like 40 years or 30 years. You can make it usually 10 years is the max. But there's a little bit of control, maybe a handcuff that you can put a paper clip in and open it eventually, so you can get out of it, but it's a little better. So let's go to the next one. Non-qualified deferred comp. Now this is actually my favorite one. We did a really nice one of these last year. So this is a little bit different where, let's say Michael has several employees that he really wants to do something for them. And he wants to make sure they stay. He wants to do something where it's harder for them to leave. The tax write-off right now still is important, but not as important as making sure those profit centers don't leave. So what Michael could do is say, listen, Greg, I'm sorry. So Greg, you are doing such a great job. If you stay, we have a clear path where we see you coming up through the steps, someday running your department, doing everything, and we think a great deal about what you, potential and everything you're doing. So Greg, what we're gonna do for you is, we're gonna create a plan that at age 65, we're gonna pay you $100,000 a year income for 20 years. If you leave between now and then, you don't get anything. But if you stay, you get $100,000 a year. We're gonna go to an attorney, we're gonna drop an agreement that says, if Greg does all these things, we're gonna pay him this. If the company does all these things, we have to live up to both sides of that agreement. And he gets that at that point. So as a company, we buy a life insurance policy on Greg, and company owns it, company's the beneficiary, but we're just using that life insurance, but we're buying it as a key person. But we are buying it as a way to fund that obligation in the future, that deferred compensation. Now let's say we get to age 65, he's done everything great, the company's booming, I can gladly pay him $100,000 a year. I can borrow $100,000 out of the policy, tax-free, because I own it in the policy, I'm the business owner, and then pay it to Greg. At that point, $100,000 right off to me, taxable income, ordinary income to Greg. So I really only have to pull out maybe $75,000 out of the policy because I get to write it off to pay him the $100,000. So I really can borrow it because I'm leveraging some taxes there, right? So great for him, he's getting $100,000 of income in retirement. Great for me because I kept him there. But if Greg, 10 years from now, how old are you, Greg?
28.
28. So at 38, he thinks it's going to be better over with Jason Lloyd here. So it's greener on the other side. He gets there, he goes, well, I can't go back now. But you walk away from that $100,000. I own it. I can use that for my retirement, or I can use your life policy. I own it, so I can do whatever I want with it, and use it to pay her retirement, Lawrence. So it's an asset of the company. So what are the risks to the employee? Well, if the company goes bankrupt, but that's no different than any company that offers stock options, right? So that's, it also is more incentive for the employee to do a better job making sure the company doesn't go bankrupt. Obviously they don't have all the control now, but they can help with growth a lot more than they would otherwise. But the other good thing from the perspective of that being an asset is that is an asset owned by the company. So if later on that company sells, that policy goes with the company. And it's a employee contract with him, so that goes, if somebody else comes in and buys the company, that contract, it's a lot of times they'll do is a company will come in and they'll buy it out. They'll offer him something really good for it. And he can say no and keep it, and if they're obligated to pay him that. Some of the things you can put in the questions I get asked a lot of times is, what happens if, because I own it, I can use it for whatever. I need to put a new roof on the warehouse unexpectedly that the insurance won't cover. I can borrow money out of the policy to do that, but I am obligated to pay that. I'm just using this possibly as a way to fund it. It doesn't have to be for that. The other thing is, it's a value of the new company that actually goes to the value of the company if it is being sold.
If he leaves,
What's that?
if he leaves.
If he leaves, I keep it.
Steve starts a party.
Yeah.
Well, then technically you get a death benefit.
Yeah.
How are we keeping track of him? Like, what?
Well, if he dies, there's searches you can do to find out. Probably we still know some of the same people, that work through the company or whatever. Now, here's where it does get a little tricky. Technically, if he became critically, chronically, terminally ill, being the owner, I could activate the living benefit rider, but I'm going to have to get his permission to get the medical records to do it. So he may not do that if he left on bad terms. So the other thing too is, let's say our agreement is at age 65, I'm going to pay you $100,000 for 20 years. and you, God forbid, pass away at 60, I'll get the death benefit, and part of the contract will say, okay, we'll pay that 100,000 for a minimum of 10 years to your heirs if you're not here 20 years. So then I would take 100,000, I'd get the death benefit, take 100,000 of that, pay it to his family over 10 years, and it's taxable to them, because I got the death benefit tax-free. They're not in the contract. So it is tax, but still, 100,000
Could
tax.
somebody sell an immediate annuity to finance that income stream?
There you go, sale two. Again,
Right
it all
on
goes
here this
back to,
morning. This is-
it all goes back to solving problems ultimately. That makes sense. So taking that a step further is we worked on a big case, 6 executives this last year. One of the guys was a little older, not as healthy. The other employees were all in their 30s and early 40s. We premium financed it. So the older guy, we didn't put in the premium financing and put in part of it. One of the younger people, we just put more premiums into that. And when the older person retires, we'll borrow money out of one of those policies to pay, or the company will just pay it because they have the money. They'll pay that person. But if he dies, just they don't get the money to do that. They'll take it out of reserves, but they're able to get much more leverage for the future income using the younger person's life if they need it. But we premium finance it together. This was 2 years ago. So the 6 people that are executives of this company at age 64 have the right to. They're vested after 10 years. At age 64, they can get 100,000. They get 100,000 if they stay. If they leave, they get nothing. And we use the bank's money to buy. They overfunded these policies first 5 years and then let it ride. Because they're much younger, it's a long time horizon. So even though interest rates are high right now, that'll work really well. Okay, next one. Split dollar. Has anyone heard of split dollar? Have they heard of negative things with split dollar? Okay, so split
When
dollar.
I was a national underwriter 30 years ago, I was the editor of Comprehensive Split Dollar.
So we're right up your alley.
Things have changed.
Things. So split dollar used to be wonderful. It used to be so amazing. It was so good that the IRS said, "Hey, this is really too good. This is not really how you should be doing it." So everybody, they kind of put a kibosh on it, and then several years later, they came back and said, "Hey, you can still do split dollar, but you have to do it one of these 2 ways. And as long as you follow these rules, it's good." So now IRS has no problem with it as long as you do one of these 2 types. The first type is called economic benefit. An economic benefit is basically renting the death benefit. So going back to Lauren here. Lauren, you're doing a great job, and we want to make sure your family's taken care of. So we're going to offer you $250,000 of death benefit. And we're going to pay for it. We're going to do everything. So I take out a permanent policy. Now I might take out a policy of $500,000, but I'm giving her $250,000. Taxable to her is the 1-year annual term rate on a young lady, as young as she is, for $250,000. 1-year term rate is, let's just say that's $200. So it's actually probably less than that. Say it's $150. She would show recognized income of $150 a year. So tax, and that's tiny, right? I may be a good boss and bonus her that tax as well. So I might bonus her $200 to pay the tax, and so she doesn't come anything out of pocket. I own the policy. I own the whole policy, but the $250 that's hers, she designates her beneficiary. She controls the death benefit on that, not the cash value. Cash value is one. As long as she's working, I'm going to keep having that. Each year, that economic benefit goes up a little bit because it's the 1-year term rate on a lady her age. Each year gets a little bit older. So for older employees, it's going to be a little more, but I can control it. If she leaves, I keep it. If she, God forbid, passes away, her family gets $250,000. I get $250,000. I can use that to try and replace Lauren, which would be impossible, but $250,000 will help. So that's a great way. That's split dollar economic benefit. I'll give you an example. One of my best buddies owns a window cleaning company, and he has a gal. I'll use his real name because no one here knows him, except one guy. Greg doesn't work very hard, and he can attest to that. He has an office manager in his window washing company that really does everything. She does the scheduling, she does the hiring, she does, I think he has about 45 employees now. He does nothing. He hunts and fishes and sleeps in. And I asked him one day, we were actually fishing, I said, what would happen if Jeanette didn't come into work tomorrow? He says, oh my gosh, I'd have to go back to work. And so he started thinking about this, and we ended up, she was a single mom, didn't have any life insurance policy, does an incredible lady. Since then, he's given her great raises and actually given her part of the company. But about 8 or 9 years ago when we did this, we set this up where we took out $1 million policy. He kept 500 of the death benefit for him, for his key person, and 500 to her. Now, it's a permanent policy, he's overfunding. His idea is, she doesn't know anything about, she knows there's a life insurance policy, she doesn't have to know anything about how much he has or any of that part of it, but his idea was, he's gonna keep going, and then at the time when eventually she's gonna take over the business and he's gonna retire, he'll give her the policy, which will be taxable. The cash value at that point will be taxable, but she can pull the money out of the policy to pay the tax, and then she has a paid up policy. So she doesn't even know about that part yet. But in the meantime, she has a great benefit to protect her daughter. He's protected. If something happens, he can go in and hire for $500,000. He can bring somebody in to learn, and he could go back to doing very little. So that's a great example of that work. So the next one is called split dollar loan regime. The loan regime, the best way of thinking about this, it's a private premium financing, meaning that so Michael, you have somebody that you want to do this for in your business. Let's say it's Greg. Different Greg, not the one that sits around and does too much, but Greg here that works real hard. And you are going, you say, Greg, I'm going to put $10,000 a year into this policy for you. And you are going to own it. Greg's going to own it. But I'm going to just lend you the money to do it. And that's part of the thing. Before, people used to lend it to them, but then forgive the loan, and that's why the IRS says, well, wait a minute, you can't do that. There's exchange of value. We're not getting our fair due. So there's an interest component, and that interest has to be kept track of. There's a government formula that you have to use on what that interest rate is. But you're gonna lend Greg $10,000 a year for so many years. Because you owe him, you can't access the cash until you paid off the loan. So you're kind of keeping him handcuffed, but it's his. He owns the cash value, he owns the death benefit, the beneficiary, all that stuff, he determines who it is. But he can't do anything with it until you're paid off. So at his retirement, he then takes the money out of the policy to pay you back. So it's cost recovery for you. He then borrows the cash value, the loan and the interest, and pays off Michael, his firm. So he's made whole. There was no write-off on it because you're lending him the money. You're made whole, and now you have a paid up policy, and if funded right, probably enough to take out income as well.
The taxable part of that transaction?
There's no taxable part because you're lending him. It's a lend.
It's taxable for him?
Nope.
So it's like an
Just
IRS.
the interest.
That's
Yes.
what I thought.
Yep.
And on the
Does
three,
Michael get tax benefits?
What's that?
Does Michael get tax benefits?
Just the write-off?
No write-off.
Oh, because it's a loan.
It's a loan. Because he gets all his money back. So there's no tax leverage there other than, actually leverage comes back to you on borrowing the money out to pay him off. That's the benefit. But, so it's a great way for you to cost recovery. That's a great way, and that's collateralized. So if he leaves, he has to pay you back. So he surrenders the policy and pays you back the money first.
in the previous example with Greg and his number one person, sorry to interrupt, isn't there a way to keep her from having to pay taxes in the previous example?
Yeah, he pays that tax. You have to always pay tax on that. You know, if you have a group term policy, a group policy is up to, I think it's 100,000 or is it 200? It's 50. There's a little bit on some search. I think it's 100 some, isn't it? Is it 50? Okay, whatever. There's a group. There's a way you can get around on group, but that's part of like your group benefits.
Okay.
An individual like that, picking out one person. No, if I'm giving you a benefit, being a life insurance, you have to pay tax for that benefit. And the benefit is calculated by the 1-year term rate, even though it's a permanent policy.
Okay, that's
It's the 1-year term rate is how it's calculated. Younger people, it's gonna be very little. Older people, it's gonna be more, but so what? Right? You're getting free insurance. I'd
Sorry.
rather pay the tax on the premium rather than pay the premium.
Thanks, I'm sorry I went back on you.
Yeah, that's right. No,
Just
that's
remember,
great.
there's many benefits for Michael. Not only does he get the cost recovery, but his employee is out there telling his best buddies, you gotta get employees homogeneous. They're gonna have friends that they can help recruit. hey, I've got a retirement plan like I've never heard of before, because this is unusual in smaller companies. But number two, let's say if Michael decides to sell his company, he goes to Hubert and Hubert does a valuation on the company before we put it on the market. That's on his books.
Yep.
That loan is,
Accounts receivable.
yeah.
Accounts receivable.
So it does help him as well. If I was selling my company in 3 to 5 years, this might be a good thing to be talking with somebody about. How life insurance can almost double the cost, the benefit of you selling your company.
But it's also beneficial from the company buying because they know that Greg's gonna stay.
Yeah, that's
Because he can't leave. And so,
There's something that you put in there so that Greg can't access the cash value, because we need to make sure he gets paid back.
yeah, so on this last one, on split daughter loan, there's a collateral assignment that he can't, if he calls a company and says, send me money, and says, wait a minute, you own, that's collateralized by this loan, and then they'll call me, or they'll call Michael and say, hey, can he borrow money? And Michael will say, no, he still owes me the loan and interest, so no. Now, he may be having an economic hardship, you know, yeah, he can borrow some money out of it, but that's, then they do
You're aware of it.
yeah, but the other part of it too is, you know, let's say Greg had a critical chronic terminal illness in that time frame before he paid it off. That comes back to the agreement between the two of them. You may say, hey, I'm gonna bonus you out the tax on this or something to help you take care of part of that, and we get around that. Or we can accelerate it, you can pay part of the loan with that, and then you'll have still some leftover to help with your family. So that's something that too, you might even bonus him the whole thing and he has to pay tax on it, and everybody's happy. It all comes down to their relationship. But it is a agreement drawn up by an attorney. Insurance companies typically will have specimen documents, but recommend going to an attorney that does this. Don't go to a drunk driving divorce attorney. Go to a business specialist. I actually was reviewing a trust the other day that was done by their attorney that was not a business attorney. And as I'm reading their trust that they told me they spent all this money on, it said several spots, insert client name here, insert client name here. You're a great fan. So, no, go back. So I'm not ready to quit it. So, you're good, you're
getting excited with the clicker.
Okay, so,
Just looking at me.
which is best? Well, it depends. What is the business owner's timeline? What's the business's timeline? You need current benefits or you need deferred benefits? And you don't have to do just one. You can do 2 different designs. You can do 2 different ones. And there may be different layers of management, where different layers of management have different ones. And if it's a real small company, it's really easy to pick and choose how you want to do it. If you have several layers, you may have different people with different programs. And maybe those programs evolve into the different ones, and depending on how it's structured, you can change those up. So it all comes down to, you know, what do you need? That key person retention, that the business needs now, the cash flow, you know, what can I afford as a business owner? You know, tax concerns, which is, I need tax write-offs now. I'm taking care of the family of the client, or excuse me, of the employee, and taking care of the business owner. These same things are for my family. What happens if I'm that key person and I can't go in and run the business anymore? Is income stopped to my family? Yeah, because the business isn't making any money. And protection and potential for personal accumulation. So it's a way to build up cash for myself and my employees. So using life insurance in these business executive bonus type situations, tremendous leverage, tremendous ways of growing assets in doing so in a meaningful way that, again, attracts, retains, and rewards key employees. So how are we on time?
9:55.
Okay, so we're gonna go through these ones really quickly. You know, regards to when you're talking to that business owner, are you looking for a bonus package to attract employees, a program that rewards key employees for staying, a plan that offers cost recovery, long-term or short-term incentives, flexibility for owners versus employees? All of these come back to protecting the golden goose. You know, all of these things are ways for you to attract, retain, and reward. So from the business perspective, these are why you have those conversations. And again, the life insurance is secondary to all of those other things, to the tax benefits, to the retention, to what the life insurance does on the back end if, God forbid, something does happen. So I'm gonna go through buy-sells really quickly, but I heard somebody say this several years ago, and this puts life insurance, buy-sell agreements in such a way that is so meaningful today because people understand it. Really, what you think about, why do people get a prenup? Because there's a high rate of divorce, right? In the beginning, when you get married, everything's happy, you love each other, everything, what could go wrong, everything is fantastic, but, as time goes on, things happen. And there's a chance of divorce. In this country, I don't even need to take that even deeper. But same thing happens in businesses. You start off, hey, we have an idea, we're gonna start this business, we're gonna work real hard, and maybe this guy doesn't work as hard as I work, and this person, we don't even know, we haven't seen him in a few weeks, it doesn't work out the same way that we thought it was going to. So having that buy-sell agreement is so important for making sure that what you want to happen happens in the event that things happen, which they always do, something happens. And with that, a prenup is a great way to explain that to your client is, you have a partner, what would happen if? So again, I'm gonna go through these kind of quickly, but really, taking care of the 8 Ds. No, that's not my report card. The 8 Ds are, with regards, this is the way I remember them too, going down the list. It's, death of a shareholder. Disability of a shareholder. Now, disability is a big one that a lot of times they don't talk about, and that's why the living benefits come in so importantly as well, because you kill 2 birds with 1 stone. Ed and I are partners. I get sick. I'll make me sick. I get sick. Half the profits still go to me, even though I'm not coming in or doing anything anymore. Is that fair to Ed? Does Ed have to pay someone to do my job, but I'm still getting half the profits? They had a clause.
You were spending a lot of time hunting and fishing.
I
don't have to pay him much.
Well, you should have known that before we went into this together. But from a perspective of a buy-sell agreement, it says, hey, if one of the partners becomes disabled for more than this amount of time, the other partner has a right to buy them out. Without, there's nobody's around it. It's not the other person being without a heart. We're running a business here. Departure. What happens if I want to go hunting and fishing and don't want to do it anymore? How do we value the shares? How do we determine all these different things? Here's a big one too: is what happens if I get divorced? Now he's in business with me and Maria, and we don't get along. And she never liked Ed.
Or maybe she's spending more time with it.
Oh man! You think there's could be potential problems there?
Yeah.
So a divorce could be an automatic trigger. Deadlock. What happens if Ed and I can't agree to how to move forward? Disagreement amongst equal partners. So let's say there's 3 partners that are third, and a third. How do we get beyond that? And default. What happens if I declare bankruptcy? I just brought the business into it, right? So if I declare bankruptcy, it triggers an automatic buyout that Ed can buy me out. And then determination of value. How we determine it. Determination of value is a big one too, because sometimes it says, buy-sell agreement says the business is worth $100,000, and upon either one of the deaths, the other one has a right to buy them for $50,000. And now we're 30 years down the road, and that $100,000 policy, the $100,000 business is now worth $5 million. Hey man, I'm buying it out for $50,000. That would probably end up in a lawsuit and be all kinds of problems right from it. But having fair market value assessment done by someone, outlining how it's done, much easier. So again, I'm not going to spend too much time on this just because of time. But again, asking these questions: how would you like to be? If your partner died, how would you like to be partners with his or her wife? How about their children? How about your future ex-wife's, future ex-husband's attorney? Those are the kind of things that get people thinking about. Yes, we need that prenup. We need to have that conversation. And a lot of times, and this is another thing: if you're meeting with business owners that have a buy-sell agreement in place, ask them how's it funded. You'd be amazed how many people spend $5,000 on a buy-sell agreement and never fund it. I ask you another question here. If you have a business that's worth $2 million and one of the partners dies and the agreement says the company will buy that share out over the next 10 years, 5% interest. It's pretty common. A lot of them, that's a very common. Buy out that $1 million over 10 years, 5% interest. The spouse thinks that's fantastic, right? You're getting that income from the business that transfers over the current owner, the one that's the survivor, doesn't have to put everything at once. Do you know how much earnings it takes to pay that $1 million out? Remember, you don't get to write that off. You can write the interest off. It takes 1.7 million of earnings to pay out that 1 million. So now all of a sudden that $5,000 premium on life insurance seems pretty cheap, doesn't it? It's all how you frame it up.
Pennies for dollars.
Pennies for dollars, exactly. All right, so I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on those. Just click a few because you guys asked such good questions earlier. I want to get to this one part at the end. Oh yeah, actually this is a good one too. How you ask those questions with your clients, whether it be in a business situation or a family situation, how you ask the questions are so important. You know, don't ask, are you married? Don't ask how many kids do you have? Don't ask, you know, what's your gross annual sales and net income, all those kinds of questions. Ask questions that they're going to tell you what's important to them. Tell me about your family. Tell me about how you came into this business. Tell me about how you came to be, how you built this empire. I was meeting with a manufacturing company. An agent brought me into Athens, Georgia. I flew all the way from Boise, Idaho to Atlanta. He picked me up. We drove up to Athens. His best client that he had some stuff with, he wanted me to go talk to him about doing some executive benefits for some of his key employees and some estate planning stuff. And we go in, his secretary brought us in, I sit there, and he says, he puts his computer down, he says, I'm sorry to do this to you guys, but something came up, we only have 10 minutes to talk, go. And I said, well, you know, I couldn't help. I saw the agent was sitting there and he goes like this, he goes, oh. And all I said to him was, what a showroom you had when we came in. I saw your fabrication floor and a lot of stuff happening here. Tell me about your business. 2 hours later, we talked about what I wanted to talk about, and I didn't say a word that whole time. He told me, and I learned everything that was important to him. His work ethic, how he sacrificed his family to grow his business, and now he wanted to do better for his family, and all of these different things. But I asked him something about what was important to him, and all that other stuff went out the window. So again, it's how you ask those questions and think about it. What we really do, we're not in the numbers business. We're in the business of turning numbers into emotions. And if you start with the emotions, and I'm not saying, you know, be crying over everything, but if you start getting them thinking about the impact of the decisions and what they mean, not only for their families, but also for their businesses, taking a step further for their families of their employees, it really is an emotional sale, an emotional problem, an emotional conversation. And the numbers, you know, obviously we have a budget, but once we determine the need, it's really easy. And I'll close with one thing. We can talk another hour, but you guys don't want to go do fun things upstairs. It really comes down to asking those questions, asking those meaningful ones. And then when you get those, it's really easy, rather than selling anything, to come back and say, Ed, I'm going to recommend this because you told me this. And it's not my plan at all, it's your plan. It's hard for him to say no when he told me he doesn't like the taxes. He's worried about what would happen to his family. He's worried about working with Maria, my wife, all these things. It's easy for me then to say, I'm going to recommend this because you told me this. And it just changed the whole dynamic from my plan to his plan. And it's really hard for him to say no to anything because he told me his problems, I offered solutions. So with that, I hope those of you that are newer to life insurance, or those of you that are very experienced, a few maybe new ideas, the executive bonus structures, that maybe you have a few cases, clients that pop to mind. Looking forward to hearing the Flex plan tomorrow and how that could be an amazing tool. I work for the Alliance Group. We bring a few carriers to Trawick, and so that's how we work together. If you ever need help on a case, I'm never going to split a case with you. If I can get there, I'll go help you with it there, or we can do a Zoom call if timing doesn't work out. But I'm a resource for you on that type of stuff as well. So with that, appreciate y'all and